Bob's Breakfast.
I'm Graham Mack. Latest news, Chris Hubbard.
Could you be a professional cuddler, do you think?
I don't like being touchy-feely with some people I don't know. You know, like I can cuddle Julie I could cuddle Julie the whole time. I could cuddle Julie 24 hours a day. I'm not sure she'd be too keen on being cuddled that much, but cuddling, I don't even, it's really difficult. Like, when it's like you're in a formal situation, like a work thing, and you're introduced to a bloke, it's easy to just shake hands.
Absolutely.
But with a woman, you don't know what to do.
No.
Because some women don't like you shaking hands, and some are like overly like the arms around, and then some want the kiss on the cheek, and I don't like doing that. So often I'll turn a cheek, and sometimes I end up with the cheek-to-cheek business.
Yeah.
And then there's the really awkward one where you go to shake hands, and then they come in for a cuddle and turn round. Next minute, you've grabbed the sleepy puppy. I mean, it's fraught with danger.
It's that double kiss that
Which one?
that
one. It's just so awful. The cuddling thing. No, I couldn't be a professional cuddler. I don't like the touchy thing with people I'm not that close to.
They're cashing in £60 an hour for hugging sessions.
Oh, hang on though. Yeah. How much?
60 quid an hour.
Oh, I think I could get used to it.
£300 for a cuddle sleepover.
Wait a second. You pay.
There's nothing untoward about this.
Oh no! For 300 quid, there better be. It's a Wait a second. You pay 300 quid for a sleepover. Like I'm not into that, but I don't want to judge. I'm just saying, as far as value for money goes, okay? If you've paid £300 and they've spent the night with you, and all you got was a cuddle. You've been ripped off, my friend.
Well, this has been seen as a form of therapy now.
Oh, is it now? Yeah. Is it now?
Yeah, absolutely. The service was launched...
This sounds like a clever ruse to me.
You reckon?
It's like, because, it's illegal to take £300 for anything more than a cuddle, if you know what I'm saying. It's against the law, right? But if your defence is, oh no, we were only cuddling... Do you expect this court to believe you paid £300 for a cuddle?
Well, there was a video actually came up on my Facebook timeline a couple of days ago about this, and there was this beardy bloke who was saying, it's completely innocent. All it is just a cuddle. I mean, he's earning a packet from it. Just
300 quid?
Cuddles.
300 quid?
Yeah.
No, I don't buy it. First of all, if you spend 300 quid and all you get is a cuddle, you're getting ripped off. And then the other one is people are spending £300 on a cuddle. If it's legit, people are spending £300 for a cuddle?
Cuddlers have been getting more business this year, even more so in the run-up to Christmas.
Really?
When people feel a little bit lonely.
Right.
So this guy who set up one of the companies brands himself as a cuddlist.
A cuddlist.
Yeah.
Right.
And he said feelings can come to a head at Christmas. People with different political views were going to be in the same place with relatives, and they just need a bit of reassurance. They just need a bit of a cuddle.
Wait a second. So the £300, you get cuddled all night by a beardy bloke?
Yeah.
Well, how do you guarantee he's not a drooler? Because he's going to fall asleep, isn't he?
Yeah.
If it's all night.
Fall asleep at some point, yeah.
Or a snorer.
Well, that is it. I mean, he needs some sort of guarantee that he's not going to keep you awake all night.
He's a beardy bloke. I don't want to be prejudiced here against beardy blokes, but it has to be said that a beardy bloke is more likely to be a bloke who... I don't know. The Campaign for Real Ale. They're all beardy blokes. Okay?
Majority, a fair number.
Yeah, camera. They're all beardy blokes. So the digestive system, and if he likes a beer, he's going to like a snack with a beer. Who doesn't like a snack with a beer? Maybe a curry.
You could find yourself an amazing picture.
You could find yourself trapped under the covers. This could be the Dutch oven, and you've paid 300 quid. Badger.
It's the most
miserable time of the year.
Oh, Roger.
Your debts keep a-growing, your nose keeps a-blowing, there's frost in your ear. It's the most miserable time of the year. Bah, humbug.
Bob's Breakfast.
Listicles. You know what they are, don't you?
No?
You know, like on BuzzFeed,
Yeah.
where they have a list, and it's a kind of a cross between a list and an article.
Oh, is that a listicle?
That is a listicle.
Wow, I never knew this.
A few of BuzzFeed's listicles. 17 things guys need to leave behind in 2017.
Okay.
The 30 most important cats. Hair products that changed your life. These are all on BuzzFeed.
Yeah.
These are all listicles. Now, this is the way BuzzFeed goes.
Okay.
Unlike your tabloids, you hardly ever see listicles in a tabloid. They like to go for the quick quiz. The is your partner cheating? Take our test.
Okay.
Find the perfect chocolate to match your star sign.
Mm-hmm.
And this is a genuine one. Which Poldark character are you? Take our test. Now, I've had a thought.
Yeah.
If BuzzFeed's lists are called listicles, then tabloid tests should be called, you're way ahead of me, they should be called testicles.
Why has nobody thought of this?
It's the perfect name.
Absolutely.
And they are a load of balls, so...
It's Bob.
Chris brought us a story of a real-life Scrooge earlier. It's a bloke lives in Cornwall. He's got a Christmas tree that cost him £4, and he only allows one present. His wife gets one present every year, and that has to come from a charity shop. He will not spend money. So this morning, who do you know that's like that? Tales from the Cheap. Bonzi.
Oh, my dad was so tight.
Yeah?
I tell you what, if he found a plaster, he cut himself.
This is Bob.
How dishonest is this Damien Green? I mean, politics is a business of dishonesty. Everything is spin and doublespeak, and but he's apologised for, and I quote, he said he apologised for making inaccurate and misleading statements.
Yeah. But last week he denied the allegations.
Yeah, I know. Yeah. But what is making inaccurate and misleading statements? What's another word that covers what the act of making inaccurate and misleading statements is?
I would say at best a fib.
He's a liar. He apologised for, but he couldn't even say the word. He couldn't, when he apologised, he couldn't even say, I'd like to apologise for lying. Now, the fellow was watching pornography on his work computer. Most people, if they're caught watching pornography on their work computer or doing something that isn't work on their work computer, whatever it is, they get fired. He didn't even get fired. He resigned. So they're not even honest enough. Theresa May isn't even honest enough. The Prime Minister, our leader, is not even honest enough to say, I've sacked him. He was. He said he was doing that. He wasn't. He was lying. She will not go on TV or any of the media and say, this is what happened. He lied about what he was doing on his computer, so I sacked him. She can't say that. She has to say, I've asked him to resign because, as you know, it's not in the country's interest. And whatever what we need is to cut through all of this dishonesty and just call things like they are. Damien Green, you lying sack of...
Don't be vile to your dial. Turn your knob to Bob.
What is the worst present you've ever got? Ian.
I had a pair of socks from Des O'Connor.
You got them from Des O'Connor?
Yeah, well, it wasn't actually a Christmas present as such. I worked for a utility company and I got called out there. And
where does Des live?
Gerrard's Cross.
Okay, you got called out to Des O'Connor's house, yeah?
Yeah, and basically my feet got wet.
Right.
I had to take my shoes off going into his house.
Yes.
I felt guilty and he said, hang on, I've got something for you, expecting him to come back with a signed photo or something. He brought back a pair of socks.
Would you have rather had the signed photo of Des O'Connor?
To be fair, it was my mum's birthday, so yes, I would have done it because she would have appreciated it more than me. But hey ho.
Donald Trump is on something. Have you heard this?
Go on.
Donald Trump slurring his words in a speech.
I've heard this, yeah.
Yeah, this is he's talking about the US's decision to move their embassy to Jerusalem. There's a little bit of it.
Let us rethink old assumptions and open our hearts and minds to possible and possibilities.
Hearts and minds. Let us open our hearts and minds.
And finally, I ask the leaders of the region, political and religious, Israeli and Palestinian, Jewish and Christian and Muslim, to join us in the noble quest for lasting peace. Thank you. God bless you. God bless Israel. God bless the Palestinians. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much. Thank you.
God bless the United States.
Can we hear that last bit again?
Can we hear the last bit again?
That was the best.
Oh, that is the best bit, isn't it? Oh, yeah.
God bless the Palestinians. And God bless the United States. Thank you very much. Thank you.
God bless the United States.
Was he in a bar at this
Who wants
point?
to drink?
Did you slam a tequila shot down on the table afterwards?
I don't know. It's a nice change, though. A Trump slur that isn't racial.
It's Bob.
Good morning, Mick.
Oh, mate, you're about trying to impress the girls.
Yeah, what have you done?
Yeah, there was quite a few of us all went out, and obviously there's a certain girl in the group you like, so he's trying to get close to her. So
Yeah.
decided to go out to one of these Japanese restaurants, and we all sat around choosing stuff, and then they started choosing all this hot chili stuff, and I'm not allergic, but I'm not very keen on the hot stuff, so they started eating all this hot stuff.
You were doing this to impress this lady, yes.
And she started eating all this hot stuff, and I said to her, I don't really eat all that, and she goes, go on, she goes, it won't hurt, just try. I said, just try something for me, she says. So I'm eating all this hot stuff, and it's making me feel really ill. And then about 15 minutes after I started eating it, I spent most of the night on the toilet.
Bob's Breakfast.
So this fellow who was the Deputy Prime Minister, but he wasn't really the Deputy Prime Minister, but really he was the Deputy Prime Minister.
That's right, yes.
He's been sacked, but he hasn't really been sacked. He's resigned.
Yes.
He's been sacked.
Yeah.
And this tells you all you need to know about politicians. Now, who knows what he did on his computer and what he was watching? And to be honest, who really cares? If it wasn't illegal, if it wasn't really dodgy stuff, who really cares what he was up to? But the thing that sunk him was he tried to cover it up. Mm-hmm. He lied to save his arse. And that is all you need to know about politicians. And that's what lets politicians down. And when they do something wrong, they won't admit it. A normal, well-adjusted human being in everyday life, if they do something wrong and it comes out, they go, do you know what? I made a big mistake and I'm sorry. I got that one wrong. And they reset and they move on. Politicians cannot do that. History is full of them. Look at Nixon, President Nixon and the Watergate scandal. If you don't know what happened there, what was happening in the election that he was running in, his people working for him broke into the headquarters of their opposition, the Democratic, whatever it was, in the Watergate Hotel. There was a break-in and they were looking for dirt to use in the election campaign. They were looking for dirt. When that happened, when Gordon Liddy and the Watergate burglars did this, Nixon didn't know. He didn't know, and he didn't order it. It had nothing to do with him. And when he found out, instead of throwing them under the bus and saying, this is wrong, this is not the way we do business, they're going under the bus, it won't happen again, and we're having a complete clean-up of what's going on. No, he tried to cover it up. And that's what sunk him, was the cover-up, just like this fella, the cover-up. And it's just like Tony Blair. Anybody in that position of power, given the information that Tony Blair was given at the time, the weapons of mass destruction and the how many minutes to Armageddon and all the rest of it, anyone faced with that information would have gone, okay, well, it looks like we better go in and get him. At the time. It then later turned out that the information he was given was fake. Yeah. And at no time has Tony Blair gone, at the time, it looked like we had to go in. Now, clearly, we made a bad call. I made a mistake. It was a bad... And he's never said that. And people would forgive him if he said that. If Tony Blair said, at the time, the information we had looked like he had these weapons of mass destruction, we had to go in and get him. Turns out he didn't have them, so we made a mistake. The whole war was a mistake, and I'm really sorry. But there wasn't anything I could have done at the time. No, he's continually tried to cover it up and make out it was the right thing to do. Because politicians have no shame. So sad to hear that Keith Chegwin has died at the age of 60. When I was about 16, living in the Northwest, I went out with a girl called Julie Chegwin. And she told me she was Keith Chegwin's cousin. And I believed her. Up until 2005, when I met Keith Chegwin, and he told me he doesn't have a cousin called Julie. I was working at a radio station on the south coast called 2CR, and we put on a charity night at Bournemouth Pavilion to raise money for a local children's hospice, Julia's House. And we needed a host for the event. I don't know how Keith's name came up, but we called him, and when he found out why we were raising money, he agreed to do it for free. And on the night he was brilliant. He was funny and charming, and at one point he even sent himself up. 12 years earlier, he'd revealed he was an alcoholic in a live TV interview on This Morning. So at one point, during this do at the pavilion, he came out on stage with a 6-foot-high inflatable whiskey bottle. The next time I met Keith Chegwin was in 2012, when I was hosting the breakfast show on BBC Wiltshire in Swindon, and he was appearing in the panto Cinderella at the Wyvern Theatre. I interviewed him a couple of times for that show, and he was a total pro. In the first interview we did, he had a joke locked and loaded, and at the end of our chat he pulled the trigger. He said, "I've just got one of those new tablet computers. It's not an Apple. It's a pirate one. It's an eye patch." The next time he was on the show, he told me that he was having problems finding somewhere to park in Swindon while the panto was on. He was driving up from Reading. Well, the phones went mad with people offering to let him park in their driveway. I think he ended up taking up an offer from a local pub, and he parked in their car park while the panto was on. So, I remember Keith Chegwin for 5 things. Number 1, he was the kind of bloke people pretended to be related to. Number 2, he was a bloke that gave up his time to help others. Number 3, he didn't take himself too seriously. Number 4, he was funny. And number 5, and I think most importantly, he was likeable. If you think about it, and you got the chance to pick what you are remembered for, wouldn't you like it to be just one of those 5 things? For me, Keith Chegwin, I'll remember him for all 5. That's why Keith Chegwin was a 5-star celebrity. So the Brexit nightmare continues, eh?
Wow, last night the government facing that defeat. So essentially it means that MPs will have a vote over the final withdrawal deal.
But it's all meaningless. Because at the end of the day, no matter what deal they come up with, any one of the 27 member states in the EU can veto it.
That's right.
Any one of them. So this talks backwards and forwards, it's totally irrelevant. The head of the European Council says the UK and the EU face a furious race against time to finalise Brexit talks before March 2019. That's over a year away. Frantic? That sounds like there's plenty of time to me.
It does sound like there's plenty of time. I mean, you've got a lot of detail to discuss.
Yeah. The thing that continues to annoy me is how the British government keep referring to the talks as negotiations. They're not negotiations, because in a negotiation, the side that gets the best deal is the one with the best BATNA, which stands for Best Alternative to Negotiated Agreement. And what that usually means is the option of walking away if you don't like the deal on the table. Britain has no BATNA. We're leaving the EU anyway, so we don't have any leverage. We can't walk away because that would mean staying in the EU. And we can't do that because we had a referendum. So there's a mandate from the people for us to leave. We didn't vote to leave only if we get a good deal. We just voted to leave. So we're leaving whatever the deal is, no matter how crappy. So why are we even talking? With no BATNA, if we think we've got any control over what's going on here, we're delusional. It's time we realised that. The EU will decide what will happen and what it will cost. And then all 27 member states will have to agree to that. Whether we're happy with the terms or not is completely irrelevant. And ultimately, we won't be happy. It has to be a bad deal for Britain because the EU have to make leaving as painful as possible. They need to do that to send a clear message to any other countries thinking about seceding from the Union. With no BATNA, Britain isn't negotiating. All we're doing is pleading with the EU not to make Brexit too excruciating. That's not negotiating. That's begging. Like all nightmares, this one will only end when we wake up.
This is Bob's Breakfast.
Let's get the latest news from Tom Burton.
Yeah, so we've got a new word. I think we've spoken about this before. A new word of the year.
Oh yeah. Which extinct dictionary is trying to get publicity by mentioning this?
I think it's an Oxford one.
Oxford Dictionary. Yeah. They come up with the word of the year. And just to remind you that they do dictionaries.
Have you heard of omnishambles?
No.
So that was from a few years ago.
Right.
I'm always interested in sort of the legacy of these.
Yeah.
Or whether they can be sustained.
Well, omnishambles is never used. In fact, I'm pretty sure you saying it now, first time I've ever heard the word used.
Yeah. What would you say it means?
That just means a huge mess. Let's say, how about a shortened for Brexit? How about that? That's what omnishambles.
Synonyms Brexit.
Yeah.
Yeah. Well, we've got youthquake now.
A youthquake. Okay, and what does that mean?
A significant cultural, political, or social change arising from the actions of young people.
Really?
A youthquake.
But the young people have been really disappointing lately.
Do you think?
Well, they used to be marching to stop wars. Mm-hmm. Now they march so their parents don't have to pay fees. I mean, come on. Where are the big issues? Mm-hmm. What have they described as a youthquake then? The youth used to lead everything. It used to be youth movements used to change everything. But now it's kind of middle-aged hippies, isn't it? Apple is run by middle-aged hippies. Google is run by middle-aged hippies. I mean, Which actually, let's face it, they're the same youth that used to change things when they were young. It's like we had this generation of I hate to say it, but the end of the baby boomers. They're the ones that, change things, and they still are. And the youth don't seem to be pulling their weight at the minute. Too busy living in their parents' houses until their parents give them enough money to put a deposit on a house after they've bought them a car and paid for them to go to university. I don't know. I think youth are very disappointing. I mean, new music. You look at, say, New Wave. I mean, that was the very, very end of the baby boomers. So, the likes of Paul Weller and The Clash and people like that. That was a real movement. Have we had a real youth movement in music?
One Direction.
Well, exactly. And that's not the youth that's driving that. That is the managers, the impresarios, as they used to call them, the Simon Cowells, who are all, let me say it again, middle-aged. Well, actually, Simon Cowell's probably a little bit. No, he's probably about the same age as the likes of Paul. I don't know. But it's like that age group. So they're now running the pop. Where for a while, it was the youth that were. You had these great scenes like the ska scene that came out of Coventry with the Specials and people like that. That whole scene that came out of there in the late 70s, early 80s.
You don't think there was still those middle-aged running the show, but just being a bit more discreet about it?
Well, I don't know. Richard Branson was a very young man when he started Virgin Records. He was a youngster, and the guys that started Stiff and all these other labels. I mean, Britain was really late to the party with independent record labels. In the 60s, the Beatles were on EMI, which is one of the biggest labels going. The Rolling Stones were on Decca, one of the biggest labels going. Elvis started on Sun, a little tiny one room I've been to. Sun Studio is smaller than BOBfm,
really?
Which is, it's a small operation. It's in Memphis.
Oh, Memphis.
It's in Memphis. And, you had Sun, and then just down the road in Memphis, you had Stax, was another independent label. The music that came out of Stax, incredible. You had your bigger artists on your Columbia, people like Dylan and people like that. But America had this indie label culture in Chicago. Chess Records, where Muddy Waters and Howlin' Wolf and Chuck Berry came out of Chess. Okay. And Motown was an indie label in Detroit. Was an indie label. These were, they had that. We didn't get that, and they had that in the 50s and 60s. We didn't really get that until the 70s. But when we did, it wasn't your older fat cat suited cigar smoking lords. I mean, wasn't like EMI run by Lord someone or other, or it was, I forget, it was Lockwood? It was Sir Joseph Lockwood. It was a Knight of the Realm ran EMI, which was, who signed the Beatles. That kind of thing ended when the youth culture came along, and the youths were making the music, and also running the distribution through the record labels, through fanzines. Like, there was a punk fanzine called Sniffing Glue. But when all the guys on, like, the NME, people like Danny Baker was, writing stuff in NME, and, all of these the people who were writing about music in the 70s. I'm talking about the new wave kind of, the thing that, post-punk, new wave, ska, all that. It was young people making the music. It was young people producing it, distributing it, selling it, writing about it. That's all gone. The young people now are almost like extras in the movie that the middle-aged people are putting on. They're the ones with the record label. They're the ones with the TV show and the platform and everything. They're the ones that kind of run everything and control the image and everything. The kids, well, they're just cast members in this thing. So although the word is now here, what's it called? Youthquake? What's been the latest trend that you can say that the youth even got hold of? It was probably fidget spinners. I mean, come on, that lasted about 6 weeks. And it was basically just a bearing or something that they spun round and went, woo! I mean, come on. What was the last thing the youth...
Well, are they talking about Corbyn and the rise of his popularity, perhaps?
Oh, maybe that, but that's only because, the kids don't understand. They weren't around. They think that nationalised railways will be better than privatised railways because they never went on British Rail. It was awful. It was awful, British Rail. It's not the answer. In fact, if you look at the statistics, there were more accidents and more people got killed riding British Rail than any of our private railways. Private, you took it that the passengers moved in how many miles.
Yeah.
It's safer now. It's a lot more expensive now, but that's a whole different issue. But that's to do with politicians. So you've got all these kind of nouveau socialists who've no idea what it was like to go to work and then find out you're on strike and not know when you're going back into work. I mean, strikes now are so half-assed. They take like 24-hour action. You used to go on strike. You didn't know when you were going back in. You really didn't. And you were off the payroll. I worked oil refinery construction in New Zealand in the early 80s, and we'd go on strike. You didn't know when you were going back to work. And all that. So they don't... The people who don't understand, who haven't seen the downside of socialism, think, "Oh, this could be the answer." That's because the people are trying, they're conning the kids, really, by saying, this is the answer. There is no ism is the answer. There never is. It's always a combination of things based on life experience. So a youthquake, although they've got a word, I can't see us ever feeling the effects of. I hope we do. I hope, young people just get hold of something and change the world and make it a better place. I really do hope that happens.
I know what you mean. It's maybe just a bit low on the Richter scale at the moment.
Yes, it really is. I don't even think we're going to get a youth tremor. I hope we do. But there you go. We've got a new word. I wish we had a reason to use it.
This is Bob.
Hi, I'm Graham Mack. Thanks for listening to the podcast. If you like it, put a link to it on Twitter or a like on Facebook and subscribe at Apple Podcasts. Anyone thinking about getting a Dashcam, don't do what I did, do what Chris Hubbard did.
Why is this?
Well, you and I took very different approaches to this.
Yeah.
You bought one of the cheapest ones you could.
Yeah, it was about 50 quid.
50 quid. Stuck it to your windscreen and plugged it into the cigarette lighter.
Yeah. Wrapped the cabling round some of the pillars and hid it all out of the way.
Yeah. I couldn't do that, could I? I couldn't do that. Your example, and you even had an insurance, an incident where a guy, he took your wing mirror off or something?
Yeah, scraped the side of the car, ran into the car, got the evidence, ended up in court.
Used in court.
Yeah.
Right. So I'm inspired by this story. But why couldn't I do what you did? 50 quid, plug in the cigarette lighter, stick it to the windscreen. Oh, no, I have to go the whole hog, don't I?
Well, it was quite impressive, your effort.
Yeah. Don't.
No?
Don't do it. Don't do it. If you're thinking of getting a dash cam fitted to your car, professionally fitted, don't do it. Unless you enjoy spending ever-increasing amounts of money on software and SD cards, and you've got hours of spare time to faff about with it. I thought I wanted one for Christmas. I had one fitted to my car. Actually, I had two fitted. Because the last accident I was involved in, a bloke went into the back of me. So I wanted a front one and a back-facing camera as well. Well, of course, they cost more. And the price went up from just under £100 to around £200. Then I decided I wanted HD video. Because I thought, well, I want to be able to clearly read the number plate of anyone who hits me. Well, that cost even more. Then there's the cost of this weird power controller thing that you have to have. It makes sure your battery doesn't go flat while it records in parking mode. By the time I'd bought all of the hardware and had the thing fitted, I had a bill for just under 400 quid.
Whew.
And that was just the beginning of my nightmare. The camera uses tiny SD cards. About the size of your little fingernail. Same things that go into your smartphone, those fiddly little things. So getting it in and out of the camera is beyond fiddly, especially if you're in the driver's seat and you're right-handed, which most people are.
Yes. And that's where you would tend to change the cards from.
Yes. The dash cam is attached high up inside the windscreen on the left, so you've got nothing to lean on. Your arms are flailing around in the air. First, you've got to unplug the power lead, then the other lead that runs to the rear camera. Once you've done that, you pop off a cap and finally, with your little finger, push the end of the tiny SD card in to make it pop out by about 2 millimeters, just enough for you to grip the edge of the card with your fingernails. And then the next thing you do is drop it and lose it somewhere in the car. Thankfully, because the card is out of the camera and the power is disconnected, you don't get to digitally record the audio of you swearing at yourself. The interior of my car, as you know, is black. And so is the micro SD card. So after moving the passenger seat backwards and forwards, I eventually found the micro SD card in one of the cup holders. So I put the tiny SD card in the adapter that turns it into a full-size SD card. Now, this thing's not much bigger than a postage stamp. Why they needed to reduce it to a quarter of that size, I'll never know. I would have been happy with something that size. I could have worked with that. It's not a giant thing. It's not like it's a huge VHS tape. It's a thing the size of a postage stamp. Why can't the cameras just take that? Anyway, so I put it in the adapter thing and stuck it in the back of my iMac. That's when I discovered that iMovie cannot read AVI files that the Dashcam records in. So I downloaded the viewer software from the Dashcam manufacturer's site. I can't edit or save any of the files with it.
Right.
Because it's just a viewer.
Oh.
But I can at least see and hear what's captured.
Yeah.
Now, I drive to Liverpool and back every Sunday. And I was hoping that I'd be able to capture some of the weird stuff I see on the road. You know, hazy sunrise over the Birmingham skyline from the M6. Or maybe the cows crossing the cow bridge over the motorway on their way to be milked. Or perhaps the drunks on Hanover Street, Liverpool, that try to hail me thinking I'm an Uber. Or the drunken girls wearing tiny dresses, barefoot, holding their shoes, zigzagging along the pavement, dodging pavement pizzas.
You could have sold these to the Daily Mail.
Exactly. But the 16 gigabyte micro SD card that comes with the Dashcam only has enough storage for about half an hour's worth of HD recording.
And it loops round.
Once it's filled that up, it goes back to the beginning and erases it. So by the time I get home, all you ever get is the last half an hour of your last journey. That's all it takes.
Yeah.
But don't forget parking mode. I got about an hour's worth of the brick wall I park against at home. Now, I need a bigger SD card. I'm on a 16 gig. I need bigger ones.
Yeah.
So I go to Wilco's. I think they'll be the cheapest. 65 gig micro SD card was the biggest one they had. 25 quid.
Yeah, they're not cheap, are
No. And I need two. Because when I take one out the camera, I want to put a fresh one straight in. So I bought two from Wilco's, 25 quid each. So now I'm another 50 quid light. I've still no way of saving the footage because I can't read the thing. I can only look at it. I can't edit it. So anyway, I put the 65 gig micro SD card in, drove around for a few days, decided last night to take it out and see what's on it. So I dropped it again in the car after moving both seats this time, found it again on the front ledge in front of the Speedo. Stuck the micro SD card in its adapter, slotted it into the back of the iMac. This time, the computer couldn't even read the card.
Oh, no.
So I Googled what to do and looked at a 12-year-old on a YouTube video telling me what to do. Turns out that the SD card hadn't been formatted. Now, I know when I put it in the camera, there's this bossy female told me to wait while it was formatting. Well, she must have been lying, because it wasn't formatted. So I found out I could format it through this viewer software that I downloaded, but that means erasing everything on the card. Well, that's no great loss. I couldn't read what was on there anyway. So I formatted and erased the card. Now, the computer recognised the 65 gig micro SD card. So I went to the preferences section. This is where you set up how you want the camera to work. Because I don't want it to record the sound from inside the car. I think that's a bad idea.
Yeah.
And I wanted to change how it records in 1 minute chunks. I wanted to extend that and go to about 3 minute chunks.
Yeah.
Anyway, so I go to the preferences section. Oh no, can't do that. No firmware on the card.
What?
What is?
What's that?
No idea. But it
I've
doesn't.
heard of it.
But the SD card you get from Wilco's doesn't have firmware for my Dashcam on it, which maybe I should have known. So I found on the manufacturer's website, I found the firmware for my model number of Dashcam. So I downloaded that. But I can't work out how to get the firmware onto the card. I've tried the drag and drop thing.
Yeah.
Well, that doesn't do it. So now I've gone back to the original 16 gig micro SD card.
Did this one come with the camera?
Yes.
Okay.
Right. The two I bought from Wilco's at a cost of 50 quid, waste of time. So and that's just 50 quid down the drain. So I've gone back to this original 16 gig micro SD card that came with the camera. I don't even know if it's recording or not. And I'm scared to take it out in case I lose it, because I've only got the one now.
Yeah.
That'll work. If it is working. Because I don't know if it is. I've noticed that the light doesn't come on anymore when I'm parked.
Oh.
So maybe that's because I erased and reformatted it. Maybe I did something to the firmware and it doesn't, so now I won't get any footage of the brick wall in front of the flats anymore. To be honest, I've had enough of it. I really wish I hadn't spent close to £450 so far. Now, I could buy two 65 gigabyte micro SD cards from the manufacturer's site. And to be fair to them, the instruction book does make it very clear that they don't recommend you use any other kind. But I just thought that was a scam-a-lama ding-dong to sell more of their SD cards.
Well, you tend to, don't you?
Yeah. You go, of course you're only going to recommend your own.
Yeah.
But the thing is, their ones might come complete with the correct firmware. But I don't know. All I know is that the manufacturer's SD cards, 65 gigabyte.
Yeah.
They cost £89
each. What? And how big are these? Sorry again, how many gigabytes?
The size of they're 65, same as the ones 65. I got from Wilco's for 25 quid.
25 quid.
They're 89. But even if I do that,
yeah.
So that's nearly another 200 quid, isn't it? I still won't be able to read what's on there because the iMac software doesn't read AVI files.
Yeah.
But I found I can download some software that reads it and edits on a Mac. And you can save things. But that's another £44. The irony is, the main reason I got a Dashcam was in case I had an accident, like when that bloke went up the back of me.
Yeah.
But now, I feel like I've been rear-ended by the Dashcam!
Bob's Breakfast.